what I realized right away was this whole game was just an ongoing supply and demand equation, right? In front of me, I had orders, buy orders and sell orders, okay? Prices would move back and forth from real demand, buy orders, to real supply, the sell orders, okay? It would just move back and forth again until one of those stacks of orders was gone, and price would then move to the next stack. This is all just motion into mass being the order flow. So take a look at the chart here, okay? There are many potential market turning points on a chart. There are plenty of supply and demand levels, but we certainly don't want to take all of them, right? In fact, we're going to end up putting our hard-earned money at risk on very few of those levels. Only the levels that meet our minimum requirements. We're going to go over that in a few minutes when we get to the live markets, okay? Because once we go through this, well, let me take you through this, and then I'll move on. So focus on this level right here. Can everybody see the area I'm pointing at? Everybody see this level up here? Okay. Yeah, okay, great. So understand price is trading sideways there. Okay, right here. Whoops, there we go. Price is trading sideways here. Supply and demand appears to be in balance. Understand that the only thing that can cause price to drop here, right? Why did prices have to decline from this level? Is because at the origin of that drop, supply greatly exceeds demand. There's a supply and demand imbalance up there, right? Okay. Now we could look at news and follow some indicators and oscillators, but none of that's going to help us. If anything, that's going to hurt us. Instead, understand that prices have to drop from this level because at the origin of that drop, supply exceeds demand. There's more willing supply than demand. So what we do is we wrap a couple lines around this level, okay, and carry this level forward, right? Now this is like a supply level or sell zone. All right, we want to identify where that real supply and demand is. Down at the bottom, price is trading sideways, okay, and then all of a sudden there's a strong rally in price, right? Again, why did this strong rally happen? Because it had to. Because at the origin of that rally, while supply and demand appeared to be in balance here, truth is there was never balance. It was always out of balance. It just took a certain period of time for that unbalanced equation to play out. And at the end of the day, once this rally happens, that's when we could say, aha, demand greatly exceeds supply down here at the origin of that rally. So we wrap a couple lines around that level and again, carry that level forward, right? And what we're doing there is potentially identifying two potential market turning points, okay? All right. So let's dive into some of that stuff though. So now that's step one, right? Identifying your potential market turning points. Step number two, really focus, and Bill, this is something you want to do too, really focus on who is on the other side of your trade, okay? Now watch, when prices come up to this level right here, right? Understand that someone's buying after a rally in price. Mistake number one, buying right into a price level where supply exceeds demand. Mistake number two, okay, we want to make sure that we sell to those novice buyers. So in other words, when you make a trade, don't just push the button because the setup looks right. Make sure that you run through the simple logic and determine that you are trading with a novice market speculator. Same thing on the bottom here. When prices drop, make sure that you're buying from someone who's selling after a drop in price right into a price level where demand exceeds supply. Okay? Those are the two things that you need to focus on. Identifying market turning points, number one. Number two, making sure that you are trading with novice market speculators, people that are consistently making those same two mistakes. Okay? All right? Now, let's take this a step further. So everybody pay close attention here, and then we'll get into the live markets. So how do you determine, so you have all these supply levels and all these demand levels on charts. How do you decide which ones to take and which ones not to take, right? Because prices always ultimately turn it at the levels, but which ones are you going to take? How do you do that? All right. So there's a number of things. Number one, how did prices leave the level? Make sure, okay, that there was a strong move away from the level. Okay. Remember, prices can move away from these levels in one of three ways. It can be a gradual move away from the level. Okay. It can be a stronger move away from the level, maybe like this, or prices can move away maybe with a gap. Okay. Remember, it's the gap or this picture right here that represents the stronger prices move away from the level, the more out of balance supply and demand is at the origin of that move. Okay, so that's a big one. Okay, the two things that you need to focus on. That's probably that one's a big one. How prices moved away from level. So in other words, unless prices move away from area in strong fashion, okay, I wouldn't even consider that a level, because it's not a level I would take, so I wouldn't even call it a level. You see what I'm saying? Now, the second one that is just as important, if not more important, is knowing where you're at on the larger time frame supply-demand curve, okay? Because you could have the most perfect-looking demand level, for example, on a hourly chart, whatever, 4-hour chart, whatever, 5-minute chart, it doesn't matter. You can have the perfect-looking demand level, nice, nice strong move away from that demand level and everything. But what if in the larger time frame you're much closer to larger time frame supply than you are larger time frame demand? Well, then that level's probably not going to work, right? So knowing where you're at in the big picture, I see Jason's kind of pointing that out here. Okay, yeah, those are the ones. Knowing where you're at in the big picture is key, right? So if you and in fact, if you are near that larger time frame demand, you could take levels that aren't even that nice, and they're probably going to work out.